Thanks for tuning in, and welcome to this week's review of The Condemned, starring I Just Whooped Your Ass, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vinnie Jones.
These contestants were already dead. Each was on death row. After 30 hours, I'll set the last one left alive free.
The players. Ruthless killers. Move the game.
I must admit that for this movie, I wasn't expecting much, but I decided to see it anyways. You have to think that a movie produced by the WWE wouldn't have much going for it. We have all seen pro wrestling one time or another and know it's a huge testosterone fest, but I must say that I have to give a little credit where credit's due. This movie was better than I expected, and believe me, I didn't expect much. Sure, there's some parts of this movie that makes episode 1 look like Shakespeare, and hey, some of the dialogue sound like it was stolen directly from Stallone's Cobra. I think we can all remember those immortal words, "You're the disease, and I'm the cure." You can kill that god-awful line with a nuke. But if you can get past that part of the movie, there is a little something beyond that. I do think, however, that most people won't be able to get over the horrible dialogue and the 80s tough guy lines, but there is a little more to this movie than I think most people would rather admit to. The most surprising part of this movie was the plot. Sure, we all know the seemingly lame plot attempt that has been done before in movies like The Running Man and such, but what surprised me the most was the movie actually made a point. It reminds me a little bit of South Park, how they will stand for something that we probably all agree with, but they tell the story in the most offensive way possible. This movie does much of the same thing. The casting was actually not bad. Vinnie Jones is someone that I've always liked since I first saw him in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Steve Austin was not a horrible choice for this movie either. He just needs to lose a little bit of the tough guy's 80 image and drop some of the cheesier lines in the film. They're not necessary, and it only plays the fans that watch wrestling and not the rest of the audience. Some of the lines were so bad that I could swear a 15-year-old wrote them. And it's like you never left the ring, and in order to make it in showbiz, you have to shed a little bit of the Stone Cold and be a little more Steve Austin. Most people don't have the guts to do this because their street cred in the biz will be lost if they take a big chance. So this movie is a pretty safe bet for him, but it sure does take you back to the days when Schwarzenegger was starting out his career making cheesy movies like Commando. And he does a pretty decent job for his first starring role. The best actor and role in the movie is the reality show director played by Rick Hoffman. Most of you remember him from the totally psychotic American client who tortures the Asian girl in Hostel. He was easily the best actor and character in the film. You could say that he was the film's conscience along with Julie, the producer's girlfriend. On the surface from the previews, this film looks incredibly shallow, but I must say there's a little more depth than you normally see in a movie like this. It has a bit of a moral play that was actually fairly well done and actually surprised me quite a bit. If you get where they're coming from, you might actually enjoy this movie. If you don't think we've gone too far, just watch this movie and listen to the producer's character Ian and just replace him with the head of the network NBC, who decided to constantly air the Virginia Killers' videos and photos on the air, so much so they just went platinum last week. These money-grubbing scumbags aired this mass murderer's videos and photos just like he wanted. So when you see this producer of this movie, just think of the head of NBC and how they saw ratings when they saw the package sent by the killer. It's the exact same thing. This movie is not as far off as you may think. These people do exist, even though we like to believe they don't. Check out this small clip from another movie made recently called American Cannibal.
Would you be willing to, in order to save one of your teammates, eat one of their fingers or toes?
This is really the ultimate challenge.
Welcome to American Cannibal.
There are a lot of people out there with no regard for themselves as well as others. This concept does seem ridiculous, but we're edging closer and closer to this absurdity every day. Most of the movie plays out like you may think. It's not the usual suspects, but it does deliver on what it's supposed to. Don't get me wrong, there are some bad spots in this movie, but this movie does have some redeeming qualities if you can handle the overbearing 80s machismo in the movie. The rest of the film isn't that bad. It has some decent characters, and it does give enough of a plot to keep you interested. It actually does a pretty good job of proving its point, but you have to be open to it to get it. Even though I didn't expect anything from this movie, I did go into it with an open mind, and I must say that this is by far the best of the 3 films I saw this weekend. The other 2 were complete disappointments. So, if you like Schwarzenegger's Running Man or Predator, this movie might be entertaining for you. If you didn't like either of those movies, don't bother seeing this one. For my overall rating, I give The Condemned 2 stars.